All right, we got to start with one of the fantasy darlings of week one, Isaiah Likely. Happened back Thursday night, so we can't forget about him heading into the waiver wire. And, he was unbelievable. He had 9 catches, 12 targets, 111 yards, a touchdown, maybe a touchdown at the end if we didn't have such good technology. So incredible night for him. So the question is, are we jumping on his bandwagon, and or what does that mean for Mark Andrews? And are we jumping off of his bandwagon? Trip, I will let you go first.
I'm all in on the Isaiah Likely bandwagon. If I didn't have one of those top 6 tight ends, if I'm sitting there with like Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Pat Freiermuth, one of these guys, I'm going out and trying to get Isaiah Likely if he is on waivers. Reason being that I think that he is clearly one of the top 3 passing options on the Ravens offense. I'm not worried for Mark Andrews. I heard somebody talking this weekend that essentially he was double covered. He was bracketed for the entirety of that game. I think that the Chiefs said Mark Andrews is not going to be the guy that beats us, and Isaiah Likely is good enough to be that guy. And so I think I might be trying to go make a trade offer for Mark Andrews, but I would be fine rolling with Isaiah Likely as my starting tight end for the rest of the season. I think he'll be a top 12 tight end at the end of the year.
You know what? We should have seen this coming. This wasn't a shocking thing. This shouldn't have been surprising, and he absolutely should have been a last round pick. And honestly, confession, I just sort of overlooked him because I went early with tight ends this year. Right. I've got Sam Laporta, I've got Evan Ingram, I've got Dalton Kincaid. Those are the guys that I'm rolling with this year. But even then, I should have gotten Likely because he's really good, and he was really good last year. And I totally agree with you. He's the third option. If he's one of the top 3. Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. Those are the guys. It's not Rashad Bateman. Stop waiting. It's not happening. He's not, this is not going to be the year. You can save the clip, but I just don't think he's going to do it. So that means, yes, there's enough opportunity for him. I do believe Henry will get more carries. They'll run the ball more. And even Justice Hill got involved a little bit too out of the backfield, but Lamar's not going to run that much, like I said earlier. So yeah, Likely on the bandwagon. And I would remain on the bandwagon for Mark Andrews too. So I'm not jumping off just yet. Now, is Isaiah Likely going to do what he did on Thursday every week? No, he's not repeating that. And he might even have an off game this week. Like it'll be enough to be in the consideration for a weekly start spot for sure. Right. Starting tight end. But yeah, he's not gonna be the number 1 tight end every week. I don't buy that. So I'm not jumping on that bandwagon. So also I want to remind everyone, so on our website, fantasyfootballfellowship.com, Harrison Zuckerberg, he was a part of our show last year. He's still a part of Fantasy Football Fellowship. He's got a weekly blog called Is He Legit, where he talks about players that we could target on the waiver wire, guys that maybe have big performances. So he talked about Isaiah Likely. He gave his take. So check that out on fantasyfootballfellowship.com. All right, with continuing on our bandwagon riding, let me throw a couple quarterbacks out there. Baker Mayfield, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then Derek Carr, 3 touchdowns, 200 yards. Trip, are you jumping on the bandwagon for either of these guys?
Let's do the easy one first. Derek Carr, absolutely not. No, I think that the Saints are one of the 5 worst teams in the NFL. They just happened to play a historically bad team on Sunday. So Derek Carr, I don't think is a guy that I'm trying to get into my starting lineup on a regular basis. Baker Mayfield, I think, is one of these guys that you can sort of spot start, or if you were the Jordan Love owner and you're looking for somebody to fill in for a few weeks, I think I'm okay throwing Baker in there. The real takeaway for me from that game is that the Commanders defense is going to give up a lot of high scoring performances to the skill players and the quarterbacks that play against them. So my bigger takeaway there is pay attention to who is playing the Commanders. And if you can stream a quarterback or pick up a spot start wide receiver in the game against the Washington Commanders, I think you're gonna get some points that way this season.
So I'm a big Derek Carr fan. I interviewed him when he was in college, so I like Derek Carr, but I'm out on the Saints this year, so I'm not jumping on that bandwagon. And then Baker Mayfield, I just can't. I can't believe the Bucs got week 1 win, and if they have another good season, I'm going to be very frustrated because I've thought over the last 3 years, Tom Brady's final season, and then the last year and this year, that they were going to be bad. Like they finally would fall off the cliff, and it just doesn't happen. And same with Mike Evans. It's just remarkable. So I got to give a ton of love to Mike Evans. And then even their new receiver, what's his name? McMillan. He was pretty good. So they've got some weapons. So I think Baker,
Chris Godwin in the slot again.
They've got some guys. Kate Otton's not a bad tight end. So Baker could have some good weeks, but I probably won't rush to go get him on waivers. But so am I jumping on his bandwagon reluctantly? Possibly.
I got one foot on the bandwagon, but
I'm
ready to jump off at a moment's notice. Yeah.
All right. I got one more guy here, and then we'll wrap up the show with some waiver wire talk. So Tyjae Spears, he only had 8 touches for 32 yards. I'm thrilled with what Tony Pollard did. Had him in a lineup this week. Awesome. I am not jumping off the Tyjae Spears bandwagon. I think Spears will be relevant in this rushing attack. I think both Pollard and Spears will have good weeks. I think it's probably hard to start Spears until we see it. So you got to be patient with it, but I would not drop him. I would hang on to him. Spears has talent, and he worked well with Henry last year as a 1-2 punch, and I think he'll be able to do that with Pollard too. So I'm remaining on the bandwagon.